Friends, if you want a should you pull video for Futaba, the answer is yes, and you could save yourself time, but I want to get down into something a bit deeper around her awarenesses and her weapon before you get too far into the banner on whether or not I think those are truly valuable. And if you are chasing them, what is your order between awarenesses and weapons? What should you focus down first? Also, I'm sick. Forgive the voice. I'm going to do the best I can with this one. Now, I want to jump back for a half a moment and tell you that yes, Futaba's meta. Just like Cord, she's incredibly helpful for just about every single team in the game up until the point that we get Anj. And then Anj is also meta, and then you just use the two of those as your main, navigators from that point forward. And if you hate her, you will be fine. If you don't pull her, you won't brick your account. Will you perform as well as somebody who doesn't have, or someone who does have her? No. Same with Cord. If you don't have Cord, someone that has Cord, probably performing better. But if you're enjoying your game and you don't like Futaba, cool. Don't pull for her. You're totally fine. Don't get the hype, pressure, etc. And if you do want to pull her and you're stressing out about awarenesses, we're going to talk about it, but also don't feel like you have to chase. If you just want to get a base copy of Futaba and walk away, perfectly acceptable. Okay? Don't let the FOMO hit you. Now, I don't have her pulled yet because she hasn't come out yet, so I can't show you gameplay, and I don't want to show you the Korea account because it gets all confusing with the different translations. But what I want to focus on is honestly not the powers themselves. We can talk about them briefly. I'm going to get into the awarenesses and weapons. What you need to know about Futaba, if you don't already, is that she does a lot of defense debuffing for the enemy. She increases your attack and your damage. And she does cool stuff like giving you shields, things like that from her passives. But her skill 3 is really her kind of main selling point because it allows you to implant weaknesses into enemies so that they are one tier lower in terms of their weakness parity. So a strong enemy becomes neutral, neutral becomes weak, weak hits harder. That's really her biggest selling point. And everyone should be pulling her for that reason. It really does tremendously change the amount of damage that you can do, especially when you line up your buffs on like a 3-turn kind of setup for things like Guild Boss. It really does make a significant difference. So let's assume that you got this far, you're going to pull her. Now you have to say, well, I keep hearing her A1 is great. I keep hearing that her weapon is good, or maybe it's not good. And I keep hearing that maybe go into her A2. So let's get through it. Let me first say what they do. A1, increase all allies crit by 12% when you're at 100% analysis progress or when hack complete. Different terms when it comes to global. This is permanent. This is effectively permanent. So you start the battle with analysis progress. Hack complete's going to kick in whenever you fill it up. This is going to be on. You're just basically getting yourself 12% crit. A2, because this is another argument I keep hearing people say, when an ally attacks enemies and the target is a debuff from you, which is going to be all the time, increase their attack by 25%. When one ally takes a fatal blow, prevent it and give a shield. First of all, you're not getting this for the shield. In most situations where you would have died, this is not going to prevent your run from going to crap. Chances are there's something else you could have done better in your rotation. On fringe cases, maybe it is the thing that separates it. It makes a difference, but do not go all the way to A2 because you hear about this one fatal blow thing. That's not why you chase this. This is really about giving you more damage because it's increasing your attack by 25%. So if you really want the A2, think about it from that damage boosting perspective because the only place you're going to care about this is in your score modes anyways. And, like I said, maybe occasionally you could have saved a run because you take that last unlucky hit. It's going to come into play a lot less than you think it is. So I would only push to an A2 just period if you really want to push scores and you're not trying to go to A6. I kind of think Futaba is you go for an A1 or you go all the way up to A6 and you don't go in between. That's how I view her. Let's go down and talk about weapons. 4-star attack increase by 12%. If I max this all the way out on the second piece, after inflicting disruption virus, increase foe's damage taken by 19% for 2 turns. Otherwise, it's 10% at the base value, so you can pick how far up you go in the 4-star. It's good. You're going to, when you're using your skill 3, you're going to be giving more damage taken to the enemy. Again, depending on how far you push this weapon, based on, this 19% damage taken for 2 turns. 5-star, we'll just look at this at base value. If you really want to chase the weapon, feel free. But it gives you, another attack increase, 30%. This one's 24 at its max value, so like all 4 to 5-star weapons, you get a bit of a bonus. When allies deal weakness damage, increase their attack by 2%, by 10% for 2 turns. It's okay. It's not the worst buff. It's not going to give you 1,000,000 points. It's decent. If that was all this weapon had, I would say don't pull it. But second one, when inflicting a debuff to foes by your skills, increase their crit damage taken by 7.6% for 3 turns, up to 2 stacks. So you're getting yourself a little bit over 15% crit damage increase. This is why this weapon gets recommended more so than anything. It's because crit damage increases aren't super common outside of a couple characters. So this is a place to get a buff that's very valuable that a lot of people just cannot give to you in your party. So that then compares against the A1, and this is why this becomes a question. A1 gives you 12% crit rate. Do you want to crit more, or do you want your crits to be healthier? The way that I view Futaba is when you think about all of your stacking buffs. So first of all, your damage dealer is probably going to be pushing crit rate in their cards. I get that you can't necessarily guarantee what cards you get, but you're going to be trying to push for crit rate anyways. If you're doing that, then you've got things like maybe you're running a cord. If your cord's A1, you get more crit from that. If she's not A1, cool, whatever. You've got Dionysus. Dionysus is giving you, probably your rebellion buff and potentially rebellion and revolution, depending on which guild boss you're fighting. And if that's the right rotation, you'll figure it out on your guild bosses. And so there's a lot of opportunities to increase your crit rate. And you get to a point that it becomes very reliable. Now, obviously a 12% increase is just making it that much more reliable. And it is very, very healthy. I'm not going to say this is not a good buff. It is a good buff. Okay. Meanwhile, your crit damage taken, again, that is a harder thing to find. So for me personally, because of the way that I build my characters, and look, I think this is a little bit of a subjective take, I build pretty high into crit. I crit pretty reliably on my characters, which means that I want more crit damage taken if I could only pick between the A1 and the weapon. So I would go A0, R0, and then I would come back and do the A1. What I would not do, because somebody asked me this, I would not go A0, R2. I don't know where that came from. Don't do that. Okay. A0 into R0. So get your character, get your weapon, then come back for the A1. That is the optimal route from my perspective. Now, if you aren't building a lot of crits, or maybe you're running some weird parties that don't necessarily use Dionysus and don't have a lot of crit buffs, okay, then I see a bit of an argument for the A1 first. I don't think you go wrong in either scenario. I do think you want to definitely have the weapon though. So if you are limited in gems, then I'm going to tell you, get the character, get the weapon. Now, what if you're limited gems, even worse than that? You will be fine with the 4-star weapon. You can pick up the 5-star on a rerun later on down the road, not that big of a deal. She will function well at A0 with a 4-star weapon. No matter what, you're getting her base kit, and her base kit is significant. It is awesome. You are going to love it. And then the weapon and the A1 are just that icing on the cake that just makes her that much more efficient. So wrapping it up in a bow, go pull Futaba. Unless you just don't like her or you don't have the gems for it. Totally understandable. She'll be here a month. You got time to plan. If you get her and you want to invest in her, A1 or A6. Don't go in the middle unless you just get lucky with double pulls. Don't go chasing an A2. I don't think it's valuable enough to justify the loss in a character unless you're, a dolphin or whatever. And then I think the weapon, I think A0 into the weapon, get yourself the crit damage buff, and then go back for a little bit more safety net on crit rate. That's how I'm going to do it. And I will be pulling live unless this cold gets me even worse than it already has. And my friends, till our next video, please take care of yourselves.